Council.
So everything that I'm mentioning tonight, I mentioned 2 weeks ago. So there's nothing new that I'm mentioning. It's all the same stuff that I mentioned at the last meeting. But one of the other things that I would have liked to see updated was on page 4 under use of information, where it says a city official or employee who acquires information in the course of his or her official duties, which by law, and it says or policy. My understanding from the last meeting is Mr. Plato said that the city doesn't have policy, and that in his understanding that we couldn't write policy. So my question is, why are we adding or policy if there's no intention to add a policy, if the city doesn't have a policy, and if it's Mr. Plato's understanding that we couldn't even add policy, why are we putting or policy in there if it's not relevant to the ordinance?
Council.
What section was that? On page 4, under use of information, it says which by law or policy, and at the last meeting, I did bring it up, and Mr. Plato responded and said that we didn't have a policy, and that in his understanding is that the city couldn't even add policy beyond law. So my question is, why add or policy? Because you're kind of setting it up to then write a policy, maybe that could, I'm not saying that this administration would, but you're kind of opening it up where maybe somebody in the future says, hey, it says or policy, let's restrict it even further beyond what is already written. I mean, the residents, there's laws that give them the ability to get certain information. I don't think we need a policy to further restrict that, and if we, in the attorney's opinion, we don't have the ability to write a policy, then why not just remove or policy?
Chair.
Mr. Plato.
The only changes that I made from the last meeting were those that there seemed to be a consensus among the council to make those changes. If there didn't seem to be a consensus that those changes were needed, I didn't make those changes because I think it has to come from the majority of the council. We can, under that section, certainly drop the words or policy because it is state law that you cannot divulge confidential information before it's allowed to be made public. So that is state law. So we can drop the or policy in there, but we can simply state that any employee who acquires information in the course of his duties, which by law is confidential, shall not be divulged to an unauthorized person, because that is the law per statute in the state of Michigan. So I don't think we need to have policy in there. We can certainly delete that term. That's up to the council if you want to do that.
We would have to get to the a motion to approve or to entertain amendments, but that certainly would be a valid motion once the item, if the item was before us. All right, got it. Councilwoman Brandon has not been recognized thus far, so I'm going to recognize her first. Councilwoman Brandon.
Thank you, Chairman. So, through the chair, Tim Daniels, you're wanting to take out the word policy in there?
Or
So,
policy.
or policy, so you want those 2 words taken out?
Yeah, that would be section 3E. Yep.
Okay. So I was confused a little bit about how Windows made policy, and this is an ordinance, and that one of our jobs is to ordinances, right, and policy.
I think that would come under law. Right?
Okay, that section, okay. All right, thank you.
From what I heard, just to restate, the concern would be that the administration creates a policy, that then we could be in violation of. We don't recognize any of that at this point in time, but the concern is, I believe, right, some future administration sends out a memo saying, this is our policy, and then if we're not aware of it, then the way that's written, you could be in violation of the policy. So a policy is not law. An ordinance is law. State law, of course, is law. And so, again, we got to that, to a motion to approve. We could certainly entertain amendments at this point in time. But once we got to that point. Any further questions, Councilwoman Greenan? I'm going to recognize Councilwoman Daniels and then Councilwoman Wood.
So on the same page, on page 4,
5, subsection C1. Um, We can flesh that out if we get to that point.
Just on that point, clearly we can say that members of the Board of Ethics cannot be employees or vendors of the city. As far as requiring residency, the Supreme Court of Michigan has previously frowned on having residency requirements for anything other than elected officials. For example, firefighters, there used to be a residency requirement for fire and police. They no longer have a residency requirement.
Chairman,
Yes, Councilwoman.
we have residency requirements on our other commissions, don't we? I mean,
Through the chair,
I believe.
something about the number bring forward the non-resident to this commission, whatever commission is.
yeah, not, I mean, it's,
Unless it's
like,
the business or the, you know, the.
right,
I would think you would want somebody who has a strong interest in
yeah.
All right, we have a motion to postpone to September 3rd. The motion is, and I'm not going to read the rest of the motion. Is there any further discussion on postponing item 6.2? Councilwoman?
And then just, I would like to see, I know you guys at the last meeting didn't want to add anything in there for whistleblower First Amendment, but I think that would be a good thing to have in there just so we don't discourage anybody.
Please come forward.
Last time, it was a short discussion about the two-thirds vote. So what is wanted is a two-thirds vote to approve someone on the ethics committee. Am I understanding that correctly?
That is how it is currently written by, Mr. Plato did make that change. Again, that can be amended if there is if the full council agrees with that, it would be two-thirds, but it could be a simple majority.
So why isn't it a simple majority? Why did you guys allow it to be two-thirds? Why did no one else speak up? Do you want it to be two-thirds for the ethics and for a council member, just the majority? It doesn't seem right. It seems like each thing should be, especially, I mean, the chair over there is empty. You're supposed to have 4 votes. You can't get 4 votes. But now the ethics committee, you want two-thirds. So I'm not understanding why that's necessary, two-thirds.
Yeah, right now it's a proposal, but I certainly understand your point. It's very clear that you feel that it should be a simple majority. And I do hear you loud and clear.
All right. So you all agree that it should be two-thirds.
We haven't voted on it to show that we have agreement. It's a
Okay.
proposal. Certainly, the councilwoman has enumerated a number of different amendments to what we have before us.